do manually do some other things out there. Meaning in a Linux environment, we can check certain commands will help us out with which ports are running out there. That is going to help us out. And since we already have access to the system, we can even see the versions of it. We can go to the settings, configuration, and look and check for configuration. That is going to be a different approach for that part. So IP addresses is predominantly it's not going to be it again. It depends whether can you access or that's the thing.
So for my last question for this session, should we all move to Linux? Because here we speak about Linux mostly.
If you're what happens that Linux is useful, very useful out there. Main reason is when you're running your lot of tools and things for security purposes, it is designed for Linux out there. And about 80% to 90% of all servers that are used in the world are run on Linux services, right? What I have seen, the only place where we are using Windows Server for the application is very limited. For every 20 to 30 applications I test, one of them may be a Windows Server. Predominantly, they're used in Active Directory, managing user desktop username and password access for that. They use Active Directory servers and Windows servers are very good for that. That is bad. But having a good understanding of Linux helps you out very well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Understood.
Please, will it be wise for me to download the Linux, or I should based on Kali Linux, the Debian form? I don't know, because some like
I would prefer, so a lot of people would go and install Linux in a dual boot environment. I would usually prefer them to go with something called as a VMware workstation, right? So let me show you. And this is what we do in our real-time example, labs, what we do. So I can run multiple Linux operating systems inside my system, right? I can practice Kali Linux, I can practice Ubuntu and things like that. If you're someone, right, if you're someone running the services, I would suggest Ubuntu. If you want to practice hacking, I would suggest Kali Linux. Yeah. Just give me a second. Just give me a second, guys. 1 second.
So it's fine if you have a virtual machine.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry. Yeah, let me know. Any more questions?
Yes, I was saying, so that means if you have a virtual machine, it's fine. You don't need to install Ubuntu and stuff.
Exactly. And I would suggest to go with virtualization. The main reason for having a virtualization is, sorry, if you make any mistake out here, it is quite easy for me to delete it and spin up a new virtual machine, right? Configuration things and all, it will reduce your time of troubleshooting, right? You can start in things and all. But if you have manually installed it on your system, if something goes out, reinstalling Linux can be really difficult. And sometimes you could actually lose some data as well if you don't install it properly, right? So this helps you out, and you can see that I have multiple virtual machines out here and each for different scenarios, right? It will help you, right? So there is no difference in my case between Ubuntu and Kali Linux. The only
Karthik,
difference yeah.
Are you sharing?
What? Oh, you're not seeing the screen? 1 second. Let me share. Thank you.
Okay.
So for instance, if you could see here, for me, there is no difference as a Linux user. In Kali and Ubuntu, everything works exactly the same. All commands will work and things and everything. The only difference is that in Ubuntu will not come with a pre-existing pen testing tools, right? Whereas in Kali Linux, if you log in, you can see the left side, there's a dragon symbol. When you click on it, you have a lot of tools. It comes pre-installed. So if I'm able to install those tools in Ubuntu, Ubuntu can also be used for pen testing. Kali Linux will come around with about 700 plus tools for pen testing, right? And to be frank, we don't use that all those tools out there. There are certain tools I use for my activity when in my organization, when I'm pen testing or hacking the devices. I use predominantly is Windows, right? The main reason is the important tool for me for hacking a web application is my browser, right? There are certain add-ons that are there in my browser that is important. And there's one more tool called as a burp that I use it for my pen testing activity. So since that is running on Windows, that is more than that. But still I use my Kali Linux for running certain tools. There's something called as, WAF woof and things and all. WAF woof is something like checking whether the website is having a firewall or not, web application firewall is there or not. So those kind of tools will not run in Windows, right? So the reason why I prefer Windows is that end of all pen testing engagement, there is the most difficult task of all, that is the reporting part, right? There we need to collect evidence. For that, we will need Microsoft Office. Without Office, there is LibreOffice, but it is not going to be difficult doing that. Just for that Office purpose, I would prefer using the Microsoft Windows. Otherwise, you can do pretty much output with that. If you're new to Linux, I would not suggest to start with Kali. Start with Ubuntu. Install and go practice and things. Learn to do the services, right? Understand how exactly it's happening. That will help you out a lot. Right? And VMware Workstation is also free for personal use. Recently VMware got acquired by Broadcom, and Broadcom made it free for personal use, so you can download the ISO and things like that. So that is what we do in our class, right? So because predominantly what you do in Linux in your desktop is what you're going to do on your cloud machine as well, or whatever that is going to be. That's how it goes. Hope that was useful. So any more questions?
So for practice, VMware is enough, right, sir? For if I get a job in a company, I have to use Linux, real Linux.
Correct.
Okay.
So
VMware,
then, see,
okay.
Yeah, please continue.
So then I need to learn this one. After VMware, I need to learn Linux. There is no option.
Yes. If you're, what kind of job openings are you looking at?
No, I'm a fresher right now. I'm looking for DevOps. I'm very interested in DevOps.
Yeah.
So I asked a question. Should I install Linux? Okay, like that.
Yes. Yeah. So in those situations, learning Linux is very much important. That should be a priority one. Okay. So DevOps is always built on Linux itself. For DevOps, Docker plays an important role. 99.9% Docker is installed on Linux only, right? And even if you're running your Docker image on Windows, the underlying Docker image will 95% and almost 100% will be a Linux image only out there. So learning to understand what is the Linux services, not only Linux commands and things, you have to focus on what we do in the main course. We focus there. How do we install web application? We'll see how do we configure web server? How do we configure an SSH server, right? So SSH server is something when you're in a remote server, how do you connect that and then you control that system out there. And we see other services like FTP and Microsoft MySQL and things like that. So how that is working, and then how you focus on the firewall and things and all. So all those things will help you with managing the part out there. So Linux will help you out. It's a bit cheaper. Uh, Virtualization, VMware Workstation is just an underlining application on top you are installing, right? It is also user friendly for you to do networking part also. For instance, if you can see here, I can try to communicate two devices also using VMware. Okay. So I can try to see, let's say this, I'm trying to open, there is a web server running on this machine, right? So I can try to open that web server is working on here. Here, 129 belongs to. Yes, yes. So this is the IP address you can see. I have config. This Linux Ubuntu machine IP address is 128.172.129. I can open here and check it out. So these are all done in our main course. We'll go through that part and things like that.
Okay.
Here I would add one thing from my end. See, Linux is like a fundamental thing of cybersecurity as well as in our DevOps culture. Now, Linux does not come as a DevOps directly, but to make our students ready for DevOps job role and make them a market ready. If you check our main course module, there are two modules are there. One is Linux, one is AWS. Because if you want to be a DevOps engineer, you have to have expertise on Linux as well as any one of the cloud or maybe multiple cloud.
Yes.
And that is the reason, though the Linux and DevOps, Linux and the cloud is not direct part of the DevOps, but without that two things, you cannot understand, you cannot learn, and you cannot get the job. And to face that thing in our DevOps, the main course that is a 7 weeks daily 2.5 hours.
Okay.
The first 15 days we are covering Linux from scratch to more than fundamental and AWS cloud.
Okay.
And luckily our plan got success tremendously. And after you complete our DevOps training, if you want to move to cybersecurity or DevSecOps position, this particular 3 or 4 tools which we have already covered in our DevOps training, like Linux, AWS Cloud, Docker,
in the main course,
and CI/CD. Actually, we are also going to cover those stuff like surface wise in our free course as well. And that is the reason our DevOps sessions, free sessions, are 8 weeks, 8 Saturday sessions, because there are lots of things to cover.
So I need to install Linux now.
Yes. Yes. So are you from US or India?
I'm from India.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Without
a lot
Linux,
of things
you cannot.
Without Linux it's quite difficult. Yes.
Okay.
And again, you're welcome. Again, I think a lot of people will like to come into DevSecOps. If you don't have pretty much good understanding with DevOps, it becomes a bit more challenging to do the DevSecOps part. So if you're joining the course, I would suggest first do the DevOps part and then do the DevSecOps. It makes things much more easier. It saves you a lot of time and a lot of confidence level also. It's going to be, you'll be able to much more better attend interviews when you do that both.
Okay.
Now you can just try to understand from the name, from it's DevSecOps. So developer security ops. So in DevSecOps name itself, it's saying you have to know DevOps and then security.
Okay.
Just a funny fact. Any other question? Or we should start again, resume our today's session on the pen testing. Okay then. Yeah, Mr. Karthik.
Yeah. So now we saw what are the different hacking phases that could occur of that. But again, we should also know what is that it is in our hand, right? If there's a vulnerability, what is that we can do to mitigate that vulnerability and things like that. So in my career, when I'm looking at different page and identifying vulnerabilities, hacking and things and all, I can differentiate these vulnerabilities in three phases. So vulnerabilities can occur in three different locations. One is the vendor software, other is configuration file, and third one is the code itself, application code itself. So vendor software is the location where a development team or any company will be able to do nothing about it. If there's a vulnerability, they will not be able to fix it. Only it is either to update to the latest version of the software or to remove that software entirely so that the mitigation is done. Because the reason is I don't have access to the source code for that part. I cannot do anything about that part. Okay. So that is why it is always important for us to constantly check, is there any new vulnerabilities available for that or new updates that is done out there, and then go ahead with that part. Right. And in one of the organization I worked, they had a particular web application firewall. It was built on top of Ubuntu and it was dependent on Python. Right. So all of a sudden what happened was the Python, there was a security vulnerability that came into play and they told we can't run those services on the cloud anymore. We can't sell that product on the cloud anymore because our product had a vulnerable Python. There was no issue with our code or anything, but still we could not continue. And the problem was when we updated the Python version, there were certain functions that were no longer supported. So it was a bit of an issue. We had to rewrite certain part of the application to match to the latest version and things. And that is a major problem. That is one of the reasons a lot of companies, even though they know there's a vulnerable version, they don't change it or update it because the application is going to break. But in my case, I think it is important that you have a better approach to how do you manage this kind of an activity, right? But vendor software is something you can't do anything about. You have to sit with that part. The second part is the configuration files, right? Configuration basically deals about how the application is set up, right? Who can have access to that and things and all. For instance, we can tell it is not a good security practice to allow a root access of the server from a remote machine, meaning inside the system you can connect directly, physically log in as root user, but via an SSH you should never give root access for that. In some cases, they might have configured it wrong. They might allow it to give root access for that, right? There could be a lot of things that is going to be there. Configuration file management can be identified using going through checklists, right? See, as benchmark checklists are there. Certain times what could happen is that, let's say I'm installing certain software or certain Linux operating systems that will come with a default, right? That will come with the default certain products out there. So that is not needed. So we have to be careful to go back and check and remove all unwanted softwares and things and all. That is where a configuration file that comes into play, right? In some cases in databases, they will have default username and passwords. They will have other situations that could be done. That can be problematic. Okay. Configuration file management security vulnerabilities is usually fixed by the network or system administrator. It does not deal much with developers, right? Any development team will have two parts. One is the operations team and who are managing how to do that, and the development team is also there. So the operations will take care of that part, configuration. But when it comes to web application code, right, that is where a developer will have complete access over to mitigate that part out there, right? It could be an XSS attack or an SQL injection attack or a or an SSRF attacker, things like that, that can be overcome by properly writing the code perspective of that. Right. So in a simple way, vendor software company will not, or the team will not have anything to do with to mitigate that risk. Only thing they can do is they can prevent, update the software. They have very little say in that. But the other two, configuration file and application code, they'll be able to make modifications to that part. Right. So this is what we spoke. In recent times, we have seen automation, AI in cybersecurity, but it is still in a very early stages of it. So automation describes a wide range of technology that reduce human intervention in process, mainly by predetermining decision criteria, sub-process relation access. This is and embodying those predeterminations in the machines. That is what is an automation about. Official definition for that. An official definition for artificial intelligence is ability of a computer or computer controlled robot to perform tasks that are commonly associated with the intellectual process characteristics of a human. Right. I personally believe, right, automation is basically certain set of steps that is going to be repeated. And AI is the ability to take a decision and what decision that's going to be there. Right. And the intelligence, what we talk about is again, there's a difference. Right. What do you mean by intelligence? Because a intelligence at an Einstein level is different and an intelligence at a chimp level is different. But both of them are intelligence itself. Right. There's no difference. They are an higher intelligence and a lower intelligence, but still certain intelligent activity is being done out there. Right. So that is why we have to be very careful about when we're using the term artificial intelligence out there. Based on what I have seen in my understanding, I personally feel automation is like a washing machine, right? You're taking in human task, which is a repeated human task again and again, and giving it to a machine to be performed, right? So here, what happens here is that in automation, I have to complete.
Karthik,
Yes.
Sorry for you. Mr. Dev, can you please stop the video if possible? Because it is, if it is not an issue.
Sorry, Miran, did you say something to me?
No, I'm talking about Mr. Dev Paul.
Oh,
okay.
Okay, I'm just trying to, I don't know, it's showing it is off. You can see my screen, is it?
No, I can see
can't-
your video, like your camera is on.
Yeah, let me. Okay, just go ahead. I'll try to do it.
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Karthik. Yeah, sorry for
Actually,
interruption.
I'm in the MS meeting.
Yeah, you are in Microsoft Teams meeting. But your camera is on. I don't know. Yeah, you are aware of that or not? No issue, not at all. Take your time, not an issue. Yeah, Mr. Karthik. We can continue.
Okay, no problem. So predominantly we see automation is that as a simple washing machine, what we can tell, we are automating our day-to-day washing process into that. But in automation, in a washing machine, everything has to be pre-specified. I have to decide looking at the clothes, what type of a wash it's going to be. It's going to be daily wash or something. It's a kids, the baby cloth wash, or it's going to be very dirty clothes and it has to be much more intense wash. How much time I'm going to do and what is the cloth type, rinse cycle and things. Every decision
video
has to
gone
be.
now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So, so every decision has to be made earlier before an automation has to start, right? So everything you are going to take this decision out there. That's what it's going to do. Whereas in artificial intelligence nowadays, you're seeing the washing. One of the things where we see is that your refrigerators or your washing machines are getting intelligent, right? There are certain AI intelligence being added to that. There's a lot of things that could be done, So if all the decision is made by the machine, then it is going to be an artificial intelligence. For instance, when we are putting this dispensing detergent out there, nowadays there are machines that will automatically decide based on the content, right? So what is the water content, how much it is going to be there. Then again, it is looking at the quality of the water, and based on that, the decision is going to be made, and more and more. So as we go further, the more intelligence it's going to become. All you have to do is that you have to put the clothes inside, and it is going to decide everything on its own, and it is going to give the clothes out, right? Same thing will happen in real time for us, right? And currently, when you're talking about CI/CD pipeline or things into that, artificial intelligence is not into play, right? So what is going to happen is that every step is predetermined. I'm going to tell what needs to happen, and these are the steps. If something goes wrong, what should happen? If goes right, what should happen? Everything is done. That is where we are looking at the automation. And this is what happens in our intelligence gathering and network security practices as well. For pen testing activities, still a lot of automation work is there. But as we are moving further, right, there is a significant research that is happening in the background, especially DARPA from US Defense. They are working on real-time applications and artificial intelligence where it will identify vulnerabilities on the system on the go. And not only that, it will also fix those vulnerabilities on the go as well, right? There's a still lot, long way to go, but there is a lot more process that is happening out there. There's a baby steps that is happening, but we are going to see, we should keep an eye open for these tools that are coming in and how AI is going to be used here as well, right? That is what. So what are the current challenges in offensive security? When you talk about offensive security, is predominantly pen testing and things like that. So your attack surface is expanding here. So meaning, think about if you go 10 to 15 years back, companies did not have work from home. All of them were using desktops. Only the senior management used to get laptops at that time. And the attack surface was less, meaning there was only one server and from where it is going to work out. Nowadays, getting into a company, the attack surface has increased. So meaning server is there. I can hack an employee's laptop. I even hack his mobile phone and get inside a company. I can gain inside a company using your email. Then again, apps are there, mobile apps that can be used, that can be done in there. And work from home option, right? They're no longer directly connected to the company network. They're connected to a public facing network via that it is there. So that is going to be an issue, right? So then again, advanced threats are coming up, new threats that is coming into play. We have to be very careful with that, not only from a technical point of view, from a social engineering point of view also. We are engaged with companies where companies reach out to us to perform a phishing attack. Right? They'll tell, we want to check how our employees are good at identifying a spam. Are they clicking on that or not? So what we do is that we do a lot of collect about information about company, employees and things. We have customized messages for that, which will have a higher click rate, but there are certain basic things they will not look into. They're just looking at the message, they'll click. And there are certain cases where they would have given company credentials as well. So that is also we need to take into account, right? Diversity of assessment, there is constantly changing, different assessment that needs to be done. Previously, only infrastructure testing was enough. Nowadays, you have to do infrastructure testing, then you have to do cloud pen testing, then you have to do web application, then you have to do mobile, then you have to do API, and now introduction of DevSecOps and the pipeline also need to be secure, right? So what are the different things and things? And then again, How do you assess? That is also changing is the right. And again, adapting to dynamic environment. For large organizations, this is bit less important because what happens is that they will have a predetermined set. Companies like large companies like Amex or Cisco or anything, they will have a predetermined security posture. This is how they're supposed to follow and things like that. And anything new adaptation has to be tested before. So it is dynamic, but not to that level. They follow a much more basic structure. But it is in the small to medium organization which are growing, adapting to dynamic environment is going to be difficult. Why? Main thing is the team is growing as the organization is going to be successful. It's going to add more people into that. The team is growing. They will need new equipments, new approach, new way of doing things. So they have to constantly adapt to that environment as well. That is one thing. And balancing automation and manual testing. Automation can, in the current instance, cannot replace manual testing, right? The main reason is the lack of intelligence that is there. Looking out whenever we do normal lot of automation scans, there is a lot of false positive in scans, right? And the main thing is, even though there is no vulnerability, they will identify something as vulnerability. There's still a manual intervention that is required out there. On top of that, there is a limitation to do that. There are certain things that has to be manually tested. Those things we have to go with manual testing, right? Then again, tools that can be used, whether these tools can be customized and things and all. It makes it bit different, It not only talking in terms of pen testing perspective, tools that is going to be coming up, right? We are seeing in DevSecOps, the tools are constantly changing. I think Jenkins is one place where there is little bit of stability because a lot of tools, older tools support is good. But you see in the newer versions, the tools are constantly evolving and things they still need. It is not as stable as the DevOps tools that are available out there, right? Finally, there is a communication and reporting, right? Reporting is very, very important in cybersecurity, right? Because in history forgotten is a history repeat is going to happen on that. If we forget our history, there's chances that it is going to repeat. Meaning, if we forget our past mistakes, those mistakes are going to be done again. So reporting and communicating properly is very important to the development team, and reporting is also going to help team with the future team, because let's say I identify a vulnerability and the current team is going to know, and next future application development, they're going to fix it. They know what is going to happen on that. But let's say as time passes, the people in that team move out of that team and works on different team, and new people are coming in. They will not be aware of the bugs that were there in the previous. So they might repeat. If there's a report available, they'll be able to go through it and understand what can be done out there. Right. And finally is data analysis and threat intelligence. Here we have to look at from a design perspective, what vulnerabilities could occur out there and try to mitigate, bring out, clear the vulnerabilities at an earlier stage itself. Analyze the data, what is the vulnerabilities there, and look into that part. These are difficult things that is going to be there. Security is going to be very difficult, right? And your AI intelligence is going to future. It is going to help you with this part, Then it will help you out automatically, trigger certain actions. Let's say someone talk about what if there's an attack, and will there be some way for an administrator to mitigate that attack? Some out there. So for the attack to occur and for that attack to be given to the administrator, an administrator taking a necessary action, right? For that, multiple things has to happen, right? And there's a time involved. Again, the competency of the administrator also comes into play. What kind of an action that is going to be taken, and is it correct or not, right? This is where an AI is going to be able to do the better task It can identify there's an attack happening out there. It will be able to take a decision. I think right now we have something called as an IDPS, which is an automated task. It has a set number of activities when there's an attack. But what if it can be do a better intelligence out there, right? So that is how it is going to do, and it will understand better, right? Especially, I'll tell you what happens was there was an attack vector that they had a huge list of log files, right? In a traditional approach, it took about 40 days to analyze, and only after the 40 days they were able to understand how the hacker got into the system, because the data was so huge, so many log files. It took about 40 days to do that activity, right? So next came in the big data analytics out there with little bit of intelligence involved out there. Not too much. It took same thing in 4 hours time. Same task was done in 4 hours time. Think about if you can introduce AI in a real time, we'll be able to even reduce that 4 hours to a couple of minutes or even seconds, or it can be instantaneous, right? So this is where the research is going towards an AI agent that is going to take into account, and it is going to do that part of that, predominantly how it is going to here. A lot of things can be done by AI, and again it has to be done. What is that you're actually going to do, so either are we going to do manually, are we going to do, AI is going to do this part, so that can be done. So for instance, AI looking at, it can do a reconnaissance by itself, it can do scanning and things. Then looking at that, whatever the information it received, it can come up with a planning for that. How do you deal with that part? And then also it will tell what is the attack vector that can be done. See, here we're not talking about defense. Here we're talking about attack as well. And AI will be able to come up with a plan how to attack an application, right? More than this is happening quite a lot. Bad guys doing more. As we saw earlier in previous session, state actors like, or intelligence agencies, country intelligence agencies are more keen on getting AI into offensive security, right? So once this planning is happening, there needs to be an approval from the user. A manual user has to be done for executing the attack. And once attack is done, it will, the output is again given to the AI out here. The AI look at the analysis, look at the result. Then it is going to tell, okay, fine, there's some modification I can do. Let me replan it, then re-execute the planning, reasoning, have a plan ready out there, and this process can go on out there, right? This is going to reduce human interaction. AI is going to stay, right? It is not something it's going to, but it is not, I personally think it is not going to be as aggressive as people are thinking. There's an time taken for that. We might see a lot of AI in voice and pictures and things creation, because that lot of work has been happening for a long time in that, right? There's a lot of automation work is happening before they were able to add a little bit of intelligence. And again, more people use it and the more it is going to get effective. But when it comes to cybersecurity, less people are using it. So it will take time, but it will still be there, right? There's a huge research that is happening going on there, right? So all different tasks can be done by AI security testing out here. So identify potential entry point in different stages and things. I think hopefully I feel it should be more prioritized in report generation because what happens, it's really difficult. I think I almost quit my pen testing job because of reporting once. It can be really difficult, because I test. There are applications where I finish pen testing and checking very vulnerabilities in 3 days, and I'll be sitting on the report on 2 days, doing nothing, trying to see the sentencing, aligning and things. Hopefully we'll have a tool for that, AI based. But other stages also it is going to put up there, right? A AI tool can be used to do reconnaissance. We can give a target website. It will do a Google search, look at all the different places, collect as many information as possible, possible, analyze what could be the threat landscape are we looking at, right? And come up with a plan how to test it. Then again, when we give out vulnerability scanning, it could automatically adapt, right? In most of the cases, we will have to fine tune it, whether it's Linux or Windows, we're looking at certain things, and then certain times we have to redo those scans in a pen testing approach. That may be done by the AI itself, right? Then analyzing it also, certain attacks are not directly vulnerable. We have to combine 2 to 3 vulnerabilities to make a bigger one. That is where automation scans are not. They'll tell there are 3 low-level vulnerabilities, but hacker will know that if I combine those 3 things, I can get an high or critical vulnerability. I can even have a compromise. That cannot be done by the automation tools, right? So vulnerability analysis, root cause, what exactly is can AI is going to be there. And I personally feel exploitation is something is of a gray area, right? A machine is going to decide how do you hack into these devices, coming up with a plan, but it is happening. It is happening in real time. You have to be good with that part, right? It has a much more bigger impact as a society if your country is not in your favor, comes up with this kind of a capability, right? They can, because think about, we technically always think pen testing websites and things like Amazon shopping carts and things and all. What happens if someone hacks into a nuclear power plant, right? What happens if someone hacks into a dam, right? They can open the dam doors, flood cities, towns, kill thousands of people. All those things is possible, right? So we have to be good with that, and AI is going to help you out with that. They can help you come with a better plan, better access. It can try so many different things, right? So that is what we see, yeah, from an AI perspective. But AI is not something for you to be able to use AI, an underlying understanding of the applications is very much important. What what environment you're working on, for you to guide the AI in a better way, it's important, right? So that's it for today. Any questions? Any questions, guys?
Yes, sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, you previously checked that the WF00F command to check the URL. Sir, what is for penetration testing or vulnerability test?
That is for, see, that is a reconnaissance phase tool, right? So every application nowadays, it is recommended to have a particular tool called Web Application Firewall. So WAF is a tool that will check whether that web application is behind a web application firewall or it is having no protection at all, right? Because if there's a web application firewall, our attack approach is going to be difficult, right? Because a lot of our malicious code, what we test, will be removed by that. So that is why it is used. It is basically a reconnaissance phase, but it will help you out with that. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So it is part of, see, pen testing means not only hacking, there's a lot of information collection and things and all. A lot of people will think a pen testing, if there is, let's say, if you're working about 8-10 hours in a pen test for hacking a thing, 7 to 8 hours will go in identifying, doing the information collection, reconnaissance, scanning, and anything. It is probably, sometimes you can tell it takes about a couple of minutes for us to hack an application, right? But collecting information, understanding, that takes in a lot of time. Yeah. Yes. Any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question as well.
Yes.
So you mentioned about exploiting. So I wanted to ask currently, which is not to say the best, but a starting exploiting system software to recommend to. Yeah.
No, it depends. It depends on which application you're working on. Uh, so what is the, are you working on SSH you want to compromise, or a web application and things like that, right? There is no specific tools for that. That is why when you open Kali Linux, there are 700 plus tools out there. For different phases, there are different tools that can be used, right? For let's say for doing something like session management in a web application, a cookie editor add-on in a browser with along with your browser is a very excellent tool out there, right? For checking out XSS attacks and all, your browser is more than sufficient. Again, if you're doing certain, depending on the burp is very good tool. So if you go with focus on web application, which is about 90% of the attacks or the work in real time, it's going to be there, right? Whenever you're looking at pen testing job, 90% of the time it is going to be web application security. In those situations, the tools which is very much important are going to be your browser. There is a proxy tool called Burp or Zap that's going to be there. And there are add-ons like, Vaplizer, Foxy Proxy, and there's also Oways and Retire.js and things like that. These are the one of the things that you can focus more on, right? So I would suggest going much more practical hands-on. That's going to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. Is it a good practice to, let's say that you copy a senior a senior's code and you make it your own? Is it a good practice?
From a developer perspective or looking from a pen tester's perspective?
From a pen tester, just like a
Let's
script.
Yeah, so it is totally fine to use your senior's script, okay? But I would suggest try to understand what's happening in the script and go through the script. What are the steps that is being done by it? You can do, and probably you will always see once you understand how it's working. Everyone's style of working is different, so probably you'll take that tool, rewrite that code into a different approach. All right. So I've done it. See what happens is that we usually will start off as a script kiddie, meaning using someone else's tool to do our work. And once we gain more understanding, then we'll go into much more modifying that tool or writing our own tool. Right? There's no harm in using someone else's tool, but you should know what is happening out there, what exactly
Yes.
it is doing.
Thank you. Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Okay, I think we are at the very end of our today's cybersecurity session. We do have another 2 hours. Next 2 hours, we are going to moving forward with our first DevOps session, and it will continue for next 8 weekends. So, and hopefully we can give a proper guidance and a roadmap for those who are right now looking for job or trying to switch their career, or any tech enthusiasts those are having a knack or interest on exploring various different aspects and modules of today's IT industry. I think this is the best platform what we can offer. uh, so guys, if you have any questions about your job hunting, because we are or your career planning, or if you are facing any issues or trouble about, definitely we can guide. And now please remember, our consulting firm is based out of US, and we have so far placed very huge number of for students and other consultant to US job market. But unfortunately we do have a very limited visibility and access like Indian job market or any other job market. So if you are in the US job market and trying to switch your career, if you are not at all IT guy, but you want to, have a dream to move forward in the IT, feel free to ask your question, because I think we are pro, and we had a very wide success story which we can showcase.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am joining late today because I forgot
I
there is
cannot understand your voice. Like, I am sorry,
uh,
because your voice is breaking.
hello.
Yes. Who is the
Uh,
Bhushan, right?
Bhushan, yes.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I joined late because I forgot it today. So can
Okay.
you say tell me what the means so we can
Bhushan, first of all, your network is very, very slow or has having some issues.
Okay,
Uh,
wait.
Even if you
Bhushan,
have any,
I think he's asking whether can we is joining late, he missed the class. We can you will be getting the YouTube link after a couple of days. We can go through it, Bhushan. I think so. Don't have to worry
yeah.
about
Sorry, this is becoming hard for me to understand. But yes, as Minister Karthik mentioned, we are going to, if you are in our WhatsApp group, uh, uh, if you are in our WhatsApp group, we are going to post the today's cybersecurity video link, and you can get the access of that. Now, one notice, I think next Friday, hopefully, we are going to start our cybersecurity and DevSecOps morning batch. I'm talking about our job ready paid training, and it will it will continue for next 6 weeks, Monday to Friday, 2 hours daily at 9 a.m. 9:30 a.m. Central Time. So those are, because this is the only class where students from European Union and African continent, they can join, because US evening batch is not going to align with your time. Though there are certain students who still join in our US evening batch, because that is 7th PM Central Time, so somewhere around morning 1 o'clock. But we have an history that students still they have joined because they want to land the job as soon as they can, so they have that kind of faith, so somehow they manage. But the morning session of US morning session is the best time where it actually collide and align with uh, European and African students time zone as well. So if you have any question queries about our job ready training, feel free to ask in our group, or you can ping Mr. Devashish, ping me for any other question. One more thing, it is a first come first serve thing, because last batch that thing happened. We have certain number of capacity, a threshold limit, because as it is a hands-on training, we cannot take more than a certain number of students in one batch to make sure that we are delivering what we have planned. It's not about the number, it is about quality for us. And the meeting link is not live yet. Once the meeting is live, because we need to finalize that when the the ongoing batch is going to end, then only we will make that link live. But once the link is live, please try to register as soon as you can, or at least if you have a plan, communicate with any of our trainer or coordinators or me to at least book your slot. Any question so far now?
Yes, how do we know that we are registered? Because it's quite confusing.
I know. Who may I know your name?
It's Voldy Bo Paulo.
Okay, Valdi. So I know we do have a little bit complicated website, and we are very aware of that. And hopefully, our new website is already developed. We are going to launch it in our website, I think by Monday, hopefully, if everything's done, because we also need to migrate lots of students, like more than 100,000 students my database to migrate. But if you want to have any issues, you can. That's the reason we always try to actively participate in our WhatsApp group. If you have any question, you can ping any of one of our admin that, hey, this is the thing, and please also understand that